Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Aurora Dialogue, Unprepared for the Worst, the Dangers of COVID-19 for Refugees. I'm Sasha Chanoff, the founder and executive director of RefugePoint and an Aurora Prize Goodwill Ambassador, and I'll be moderating the conversation today. I am absolutely thrilled to be here with two Aurora Prize laureates, Marguerite Barankitse, or Maggie, who's the founder of Maison Shalom, which works in Burundi and Rwanda to protect refugees and those impacted by violence. She is the 2016 Aurora Prize laureate and an inspiration. And I'm also joined by Mirza Dinnayi, co-founder and director of Airbridge Iraq, which works to protect and save the lives of Yazidi people. And he is the 2019 Aurora Prize laureate. Mirza, it is such an immense pleasure to have you as part of this cohort. In this conversation today, we'll hear about Maggie and Mirza's motivation for founding the organizations that they lead to serve some of the most at-risk people in the world and the impact of COVID-19 on their work. I'm thrilled to be the moderator today because I feel a real affinity with Maggie and Mirza's work. I lead an organization called RefugePoint, which finds solutions for refugees in the most life-threatening situations. And we do that by helping to resettle people to countries like the US, Canada, Australia, and EU countries where they can rebuild their lives safely. And we do that by helping people who are stuck in the countries to which they fled establish themselves so they don't have to depend on aid. We've worked in Burundi and Rwanda, and also in Iraq with Yazidis. I want to say a few words about the Aurora Prize before we begin. It was launched with the initial mantra of awakening humanity. As many of you know, the founders are descendants of the Armenian genocide, or Armenian genocide survivors, and they recognized that they wouldn't be here today if it hadn't been for the action of others who risked their lives over 100 years ago to save Armenians. So this defining and noble human characteristic, to risk your life on behalf of others, inspired the Aurora Prize, which shines a bright spotlight on people today taking such action, just like Maggie and Mirza. The prize laureates, as many of you know, each get $1 million to give away to others. This idea is called gratitude in action. If you yourself have survived a deadly situation, or you've been helped in time of great need, your own sense of gratitude can be a profound motivator to take action to help others. And if we hone in on this idea of gratitude and you think about what this means in your own life, then it can be an endlessly renewable force for life-changing good. And we absolutely need life-changing good today. We are in a time of unparalleled challenges and crises. COVID-19 has laid bare the inequalities in society, and it's starting to hit refugee and displaced populations now. And this pandemic in many ways has stranded people from their homes who fled their homes because they've been cut off from aid. Our title today, Unprepared for the Worst, signals that refugees who are dependent on others for support have in many ways not been able to prepare at all for this pandemic because they've been stuck in situations of dependence. We also celebrate World Refugee Day, and in light of World Refugee Day, the UN Refugee Agency just came out with its global trend reports, which are the latest statistics and information on displacement. This came out just yesterday, so you may see it in the news today, but I'll highlight a few of the top line trends. One is that nearly 80 million people are displaced by conflict. That's about 1%. Hello everyone, welcome to this Aurora Dialogue. And in addition to that, this number has doubled in the past decade. The average amount of time it takes for someone to return home is between about 20 and 25 years. If you look at Afghanistan, just as an example, many people who fled from there have been refugees for 5 decades. 2/3 of refugees come from 5 countries: Syria, Venezuela, Afghanistan, South Sudan, and Myanmar. They already have little or no access to support, and now COVID-19 has arrived. So there are a lot of challenges and there's a lot of bad news. But now I want to turn to what is good and what is inspiring. We have two people who've dedicated themselves to protecting others and who themselves have risked their lives to do that. So as we get into this conversation, what we'll do first is show a brief video that highlights Maggie and Mirza, and we'll go to that video now.
I have a dream to change the world.
To see so many people here who have engaged.
Immigrants and refugees not only pay back, but they pay forward.
And the true way to peace.
The biggest exodus of Rohingya people from Myanmar.
We need to save each other, otherwise there will be no future for our children.
Maggie and Mirza, what a pleasure to be here with you. And it was nice to connect before this call as well. So what I'd like to start by understanding why you won the Aurora Prize. The Aurora Prize values people who risk their lives to save others. And Maggie, I wonder if briefly you could describe to us what you did to risk your life to protect others. Go ahead. You'll have to, Maggie, you'll have to unmute yourself. Yes, there.
Hi, good morning or good evening for everybody. When they ask me if I risk really my life, for me, I said it's normal. Our unique and sublime vocation is to love. It's to spread also happiness. Then for me, when I began, everybody said, are you crazy? How you risk your life? I said to all those people, no, it's our vocation. We are one human family. We can't say to the others who are in risk and say, oh, I must protect myself and abandon our brothers and sisters. Then it's why I risk my life. I said, okay, if I must die with those kids or
Maggie,
those...
tell me this, sorry, just so I understand the context, this was during the Burundian genocide, and they were coming to attack and kill children who were a different tribe than you.
Yes. No,
okay.
Yes, they killed my family in my village. And then I fled with my 7 adoptive kids who were the 2 ethnic group. For me, we have one ethnic group. We are human beings. We are children of God. And then I met people who I know they were not my ethnic group. And they were the group of those who had killed my family. But for me, I said, no, we must protect each other. And then I went in the bishop house with those people and I hid them. I said, no, we must hide. If the Hutu, because I am a Tutsi, will come, you will protect me. And if Tutsi will come, I will protect you. Unfortunately, Tutsi came and they tied me and they killed 72 people in front of me. And then the children were there. They have only me as mother, as father, as family. Then I decide to stand up and to try to give them love, to give them protection. I have no other choice, and of course I have a choice. I can abandon and said, okay, their parents had killed the ethnic group killed my family, then I abandoned them. But I said, I am a mom, I am a woman, and the vocation of a woman is to protect life. And I am a Christian, and I know that everybody is a child of God. Then we have a sublime vocation to protect the others. It's why I stood up.
Maggie, thank you. You have been an inspiration since I met you when you received the Aurora Prize so long ago. And I know that it is, for anybody who's gone through the kind of things that you've gone through, can be extremely difficult, and most people are not able to talk about the kind of things that you can talk about. And so I just want to recognize how important it is that you can share your story with others, and that it just takes great courage and ability to do that, because you have been able to articulate something that is unimaginable to most people in the world. So thank you for your grace, for your forgiveness, and for your uncommon and unique abilities that make you who you are. We value and treasure it so much. I want to now turn to Mirza, and Mirza, ask you, the plight of the Yazidi people has been known to the world for a long time, but it often also goes overlooked. But we all know the Islamic State's intention on annihilating the Yazidi people. You have been protecting the Yazidi people since you started Airbridge Iraq over a decade ago. I'd love to know what the initial motivating situation was that led you to do that, and how you risked your life, or what happened to you.
Thank you very much, dear Sasha. The issue was, actually, I started my humanitarian work and career spontaneously after a terror attack by 2 truck bombs attacked 2 Yazidi villages in 2007. And at that time, I was in Germany. I started a humanitarian, and we raised humanitarian aid for the victims. And I went to Iraq and visited the hospital, and I saw a lot of children who were victimized during this terror attack. And I brought 6 children who were victims of this terror attack to Germany for the humanitarian, for the treatment. And actually at that time, there was no any German NGO working in Iraq, because everybody was afraid because of sectarian war in Iraq, because of all the terror. So I did the risk and brought those children for the treatment. And after I finished that, so it has changed my life, because I said, if I can help those children, I can help many other children, not only the Yazidis. So therefore, we established the Airbridge Iraq, and we took the name Airbridge, or Luftbrücke in the German language, from the German history, as the Luftbrücke Berlin started our Second World War. But the Yazidi genocide in 2014 has changed my life 1,000 times more than before. And I think the humanitarian work is, everybody in this world is hero, but only there is some right moment that the people catch you what you are doing. I think we are ordinary people, and every ordinary woman or man, they are hero in some kind of their life, and you need only to catch them in that right moment. I think they catch us in that moment where we risk our life. And it's not only the risking life, you are risking your time, you are risking your name, you are risking the whole thing. But it is just like a one-way street. If you start the humanitarian mission, you cannot stop. There is a lot of motivation behind you to go on.
And I know you're not sharing some things that you've gone through, including a helicopter crash where you certainly have risked your life. But I think that's such an important point, that we can all do something, to sacrifice something of ourselves to help others. I just want to share with both of you that I also faced a situation that changed my life, just like it changed yours. I was part of a small team that was sent into the Congo as part of a US operation to evacuate people who were being massacred there. And we had a list of people that we were told to take out, and we were given explicit instructions not to take anyone who wasn't on our list.
Yeah.
And the list was made up of 112 people. And when we arrived in Congo to evacuate people who had fled massacres and were in a safe compound, we found the 112 people on our list. And we also found 32 widows and orphans who were not on our list. And we knew that if we took them, we were risking the lives of everyone else, because we were told that if we try to take anybody else, the flight will be canceled. But if we left them there, they would perish. So my colleague, who was a senior operations officer for the International Organization for Migration, a woman named Sheikha Ali, convinced me that we had to try to take those widows and orphans, and we went against our orders, and we did so. And that experience, and we managed to get everybody out, and that experience actually opened my eyes to the plight of people who were forgotten and overlooked and led to starting RefugePoint. Maggie, I want to turn back to you now and hear a little more about what Maison Shalom does. So you described this crucible moment or crucible situation that you went through, which I think centered you around love, forgiveness, the importance of respecting the human race and everybody, and you turned that extraordinary energy into Maison Shalom. So tell us now what Maison Shalom does.
For me, if you take you took children, they need also education. They need to have a good life. And a child, for example, it doesn't need only food or education. It needs love. It needs a family. And then Maison Shalom, for me, why it's they call it the house of peace, because I want to raise a new generation in Great Lakes region who will be able to break this cycle of violence. And how we can be able to break this cycle of violence in this Great Lakes region. It was with education, and also to give dignity to the community, and to gathering all those people who are not the same ethnic group and who are in fighting. Then we did it through education, and we educate everybody, not only children. And when I began, I saw that mothers died and they give me babies. I built hospital, I built also schools, I built libraries. I tried to improve the life for everybody. And when we fled the country because of the war, I said, okay, there are 60,000 people in a refugee camp, in one refugee camp. How to help those people to create hope, to create dignity, to forgive, to see all those children, young people who were tortured, how to help them, those who were castrated, how to give them enough hope to rebuild their lives. It's so big. What we must do, it was education, sanitary, feeding, but love makes us inventor. Maison Shalom is not activities. It's a message that we can live together as brothers and sisters. And this is this message of love for everybody. It's what we do. I can't explain what you do in the morning. It's to ask a mom, when you ask to your mothers, what you will do for your son. It's what I try. It's everybody say it's utopist, but you see, during 28 years, I never give up. Even they beat me, they put me in jail, they beat me. You see that I am always with this. I have a machete in my head. But with that, I don't think about the problems, because for me, the problems, our suffering became our opportunities to change in opportunity. Yeah.
So Maggie, what you just said is a call to action. When I look at Maison Shalom's website, I see that you provide holistic support, education, food, training, all the medical support. But what you just said is the summary of all this, which isn't just support, it's about breaking the cycle of violence, and it's about giving people dignity. And it makes me think of this idea of gratitude in action, that how we're going to break that cycle of violence is when people see your example of you giving to others and what you've been through. They understand that that's possible, that forgiveness is possible, that community is possible, even if it's come through war and conflict. And so I'm just going to say to everybody listening now, please go to Maison Shalom and their website, and please support Maggie and what she does. We'll go more into the reasons that we need to get support directly into the hands of refugees and those impacted by violence. But what Maggie represents is the future of humanitarian response. I want to now turn to Mirza. I'd like to hear more about what Airbridge Iraq does. Tell us some of the operations that you've done and what you've accomplished.
The starting of Airbridge Iraq was to help Iraqi children and terror victims and treat them in Germany. We did this from 2007, 2014. We treated more than 150 Iraqi children from different areas, from different ethnicities and religious groups in Germany. After 2014, I started the humanitarian mission with the Yazidi after the Yazidi genocide. And our organization was local partner of German state Baden-Württemberg in the evacuation and resettlement of 1,100 women and children who were survivors of ISIS. And actually, during this genocide, we were thinking not only the humanitarian or medical treatment will help those victims. We have to offer some psychosocial support. We have to make some human rights advocacy work to bring more awareness about the Yazidi genocide. And we were collaborating in different levels with the different authorities in Europe, in Iraq, in different areas to help and to raise more awareness about the Yazidi genocide and the plight of the minorities in Iraq. And we were somehow very successful. We had very good collaboration with the members of European Parliament and the Parliament, local Parliament in different countries. And even after the COVID-19, we were last month, for example, engaged in evacuation of 19 Yazidi women and children who were stuck in Iraq after the lockdown for 3 months, and they had to return back to their children in Germany. And we helped the authorities to evacuate them from Iraq, although everything was closed. So in Germany as well as in Iraq, there were not any flights. But with the help of the ministries and in Germany and with our humanitarian work, we could evacuate those people who need urgent help. So this is the main work, and what we try to do. It is not enough for all cases, but I think we try to do our best.
And Mirza, it's extraordinary. RefugePoint also has worked with Yazidis, and so I know firsthand some of the violence and trauma that people have gone to. In particular, we were helping to evacuate Yazidi children who had been captured by the Islamic State and then escaped. And we helped to evacuate them to Canada. And our staff met with them and cared for those unaccompanied children before they moved to Canada. And so the work that you're doing is truly reaching and protecting some of the most overlooked people in the world. And it is just extraordinary. Thank you. I think we also have to recognize the efforts of the German government. Also, the Australian and Canadian governments have resettled many Yazidi people. I think Australia took about 2,700 and Canada over 1,000 too. And those three countries have done a great deal. Mirza, I'm just curious, do you find that the Yazidis who come to Germany play a role in advocating for their own community? Because it makes me think of the lost boys of South Sudan and girls of South Sudan who came to the US through the US government's resettlement program and then influenced our government to help bring peace to South Sudan. How has that worked?
Was extremely helpful. For example, the beneficiaries of our program was Nadia Murad, the laureate of the Nobel Prize, Lamia Haji Bashar, the laureate of Zakharov Prize, Farida Abbas, and many other girls who wrote books about the Yazidi plight. I think bringing those girls to Germany has helped the Yazidi issue on the international level. Today, if you are speaking about GBV victims, if you are speaking about the women in the war, if you are speaking about the children who are victimized in the war, you are mentioning every time in everywhere in the world about the Yazidi plight. And I think so, and I've forgotten the community in North Iraq. Nobody knows anything about them, a very small community where they don't have any kind of lobby, they don't have any kind of big concern that are helping them. And now the issue of the Yazidi is on the debate. It was one of the reasons how the Yazidi issue became very strong on the international level. Because and this is we thank those girls who came to Germany through our program, and they were very courage to go to the world. And when I hear the voice from Nadia Murad or Lamia or the other girls, when they say, I am speaking, it is not easy for me to speak about how I was raped, but I am speaking about that in order to stop the world and stop the atrocities, and in order to protect the girls and the women over all the world, that such thing will never happen to other girls and other women in the world. This is very important.
What an incredible example of the kind of work that you do and the voices that it enables, the courage of the people that you mentioned that then have the opportunity to speak out. And again, just like Maggie, very few people actually have that courage and ability because of what they've gone through. So now we've talked a little about you personally. We've talked about what your organizations do. I want to turn to COVID-19 and its impact on your organizations and what you're seeing. So Maggie, starting with you, how has COVID-19 impacted the work that you do?
Yeah, you know, we are in education, and now there was lockdown, and all our students, you see, the 343 students must stop their studies in universities and return in a camp, in a refugee camp. And it's very difficult for us to the other students who don't live in a refugee camp, they can continue their studies online. But unfortunately for those vulnerable refugees, I can't have computers for them. Then we will pay again they lost all the academic year. The secondary school, because the refugees, Maison Shalom supports young refugees to be in a boarding school in order to follow their study. But they stop and they return in the refugee camp. They lose, we can't. And then the impact was very, very strong. And also urban refugees, those who work, because refugees live a daily life because they must earn their living by day. They can't go out. then they can't have something to eat, nothing. Then all the urban refugees, they lose their jobs, and we must feed them, but we didn't prepare to feed all those people. And when I called other NGO, they said we have nothing, because they didn't prepare that.
Mm-hmm.
Then Maison Shalom, we call our Burundian diaspora in Canada, in Sweden, in Belgium, and then they began, we called them, and every morning we must send $2 to those urban refugees in order to have something to eat. And here in Kigali, it was very easily, because with mobile money, we can use our mobile money, and we must buy the mobile, the smartphone to refugees in order to have the money to buy something. And it changed completely, but love makes us inventor. Always I said to the people, when you say, oh, I can't do something, I said, are you really sure that you can't do something? You can share. Then this good also experience with those bad COVID, we became great, because with those people who can't exchange, we found them, we were all the day, and the police here allowed me, give me the pass on my car, I can visit, I can go. And yes, the impact, the bad impact was for the students, because now until in September, our refugees can't go to school. And in our refugee camp, we have built a big center. Only few students can come and they exchange, because we have a cyber cafe. And then with that, the impact also, the good impact, we began to sew the mask. We have a sewing workshop. Workshop with then with we can product 2,000 by day, 2,000 masks.
Are you raising money for these masks right now so people can do that?
Yes, we try if they can now. OEM.
Yep, International Organization for Migration, one of my former employers.
Ordered for 2,000 masks. 20,000 masks. And we are trying to found, because everybody said, I can give you a sewing machine, you can sew masks. Don't even there was impact, bad impact. We began to say we must not die before our death.
Yes. So Maggie, can we find this information online if we go? Because I feel like a lot of people want to know what they can do right now to support refugees. And when you say people are earning a livelihood by sewing masks, that is both supporting themselves and helping others during this COVID-19 pandemic. So we'll again direct people to your website. I want to just mention a few things related to what you said. One is that you highlighted refugee camps. When we look at all refugees worldwide, we see that more people are now in cities or in urban areas than in refugee camps. And refugee camps are a little more organized, whereas urban areas aren't. So you're highlighting the lack of education in refugee camps, and you also highlighted the lack of livelihoods for urban refugees. And that's what I've seen as well. RefugePoint has a big program in Nairobi to help get refugees on their own 2 feet and work with them to do that. And with COVID-19, overnight, people's livelihoods vanished. And what they need desperately right now is food to survive and rent so that they're not kicked out on the street. I'm closely in touch with many refugee-led organizations, one in Uganda called Yarid, and they also said the same thing. We need money to get food into people's mouths and to survive right now. And again, I'll go back to a point that we made earlier, which is that it is vital to support refugee-led organizations today. Maggie, what you're doing shows us that even a little money can go a long way. When you say that the diaspora is sending $2 a day, we know that that $2 in one day can actually feed one person and can help right now get people through this. So the UN Refugee Agency is raising hundreds of millions of dollars to support the global infrastructure and support refugees. But we also at the same time need to get money into the hands of refugees immediately. And Maggie, you are a conduit for doing that. RefugePoint actually also put up a list of refugee-led organizations on our website to try to direct philanthropists to refugee-led organizations. Mirza, turning to you and looking at your work, what impact has COVID-19 had on it?
Well, first of all, because Arab Reach Iraq is mainly what we did, we brought patients, especially children, to Europe, to other countries for the treatment. And because of lockdown, the whole project have been stopped. Even we started the new mission to Armenia. We sent our first child with congenital heart disease to Armenia and was successfully treated. But the mother with child, they were stuck in Armenia for more than 1 month until they could return back home because of lockdown. So it has affected a lot in this kind of mission. Even our other projects, some of them have been postponed because of COVID-19, and a lot of work that we wanted to start, especially with the Aurora Fund, that's supposed to be started in April or May. We prepared everything, and now we are waiting to start in next month. Hopefully that the lockdown would be better than now. So the situation generally is affected because our work is with transportation, with the travel, and all the travel restrictions has stopped our work. This is the first time, for example, since 25 years that I stuck at home for 3 months in Germany. This is the first time that happened to me. So, but in the same time, you find new opportunities. For example, even in some of our projects, we are starting now to do some online, to deliver some online support, especially in the training or in the empowerment. We can do some work in online, but not all the work. We hope that the situation will be changed, especially because our community and the beneficiaries who are now in refugee camps in Kurdistan, they start now to return back to their home. So they need our support and the support from different NGOs to start the life in the destroyed area. And we know that since 6 years after that all destruction that Islamic State did to the Yazidi areas, now the people are returning back and they are starting from zero. They don't have anything and they need a lot of support in order to be able to rebuild this area.
And what are some of the NGOs that are in that area that that can help to rebuild?
Well, I don't know exactly who is now working, but we have now IOM is there, USAID, so the GIZ, so the main donors. Mm-hmm. They are there on the ground. It's unfortunately the work is the work is good, but it's not that sufficient because the need is so huge. This mm-hmm. This is the difference. I think the issue that the Yazidi from Sinjar especially they need a kind of international fund that help the people and facilitate their returning back. And help them in rebuilding infrastructure in kind of development, making some new jobs for those people mm-hmm. who return back. And the biggest challenge that the Yazidi have also We had in last time also Turkish airstrikes on Sinjar because of the political problems and conflict there. We need a lot of support from the international community and also from the Iraqi government in order to bring peace in that area, to help the people to return back. This is one of the biggest challenges. So the people return back there and they don't know if they will be attacked by airstrike, and that they are not related with. So the airstrike are because of another reasons, but this is also the destabilization on this area is very dangerous.
So this is interesting. As we're talking, we're getting a lot of texts and questions. So I'm going to turn to some questions too, but I have a few more thoughts to share. One, Mirza, actually one of the questions that came in was, there has been rising xenophobia in the world, and borders are being closed and have been closed before COVID-19. And now with COVID-19, more borders are being closed. And so the question is, what is the future of being able to bring refugees to places like Germany and other countries with more and more borders being closed? We have to first obviously recognize that the majority of people who are displaced are stuck in their own countries or stuck in neighboring countries and will not have an opportunity to go to a place like Germany. It's a small minority who are in life-threatening danger who have the opportunity to resettle. But what is the future of countries keeping their doors open? And I'll just mention a few things that I'm seeing, because RefugePoint works very closely with many governments and the UN Refugee Agency to resettle refugees, is that Germany has obviously been a leader, as has Canada and others. And what we're seeing now is, even though resettlement has been slowed, other visas are available for people. We have been piloting a family reunion project to reunite unaccompanied children with their parents in EU countries in collaboration with the UN Refugee Agency and the International Refugee Assistance Project. And we see that tens of thousands of children need to benefit from this. And we also see that when countries start opening up, family reunion visas are one of the first visas that they make available. So Switzerland, for example, is opening up family reunion visas, and we see other countries will follow, Germany too. What do you think, Mirza, is the future of countries being welcoming to refugees?
Very, very hard. I am lobbying since 4 years for the issue of some Yazidi women and men who were victimized by ISIS, and to bring them outside because they are very vulnerable, and unfortunately was not successful. Now, each politician in Europe and I guess in USA, they will be very careful to support such kind of advocacy that we are doing. So for us as non-governmental people who are working only for the humanitarian agenda, but for the politician, he should think about all this populism that was raised. I wrote a couple of times in my social media about the danger of racism during the COVID-19 crisis. And I think this is what I'm afraid about is not the health situation and health risks of COVID-19 and consequences. I am very afraid about the risk that we have because of rising such kind of populism and racism. We have to fight against that, and we need the support from our European friends, from our politicians, our good politicians who are believing in principles, in humanity, to support us to stop such kind of xenophobia and racism. This is very important because the whole, just like Maggie said, the whole human family is one family. There is no different ethnicity. There is no different in the context of humanity. All of us are sharing the same values, the same principles. Maybe we are different in our color. Maybe we are different in our names, in our language, but we are the same. And therefore, we have to keep this kind of solidarities. And this is one of the spirit of Aurora initiative as well, to show the world that all of us are one kind of human family. Mm-hmm. So this is we should keep, and we need our audience who are hearing and watching this webinar now. So we need the voice of each one of you to stop such kind of racism in a diplomatic way, in a humanitarian way. The war is not finished. We just started the crisis with COVID, not finished. I'm not speaking about the health challenges. I'm speaking about the challenges in our side that has been that has changed. And you can imagine in the past, if you saw a friend, you was hugging him. Now you are staying 2 meters far away from your friend and say hello. So you can imagine how difficult is that. So you should stop these feelings, and the people who are racist from their from inside, they are using such kind because you feel that the danger is coming from the others, or might come from them, because it's an infection. It's come from the others. The other people are guilty because therefore I am sick. It is very dangerous if they are instrumentalizing such kind of the character of infection.
Thank you. Incredible words. Maggie, I see you nodding your head and smiling in agreement with what Mirza is saying. And of course, racism and prejudice have torn apart communities in the Great Lakes. What examples beyond your own have you seen of people coming together despite that racism, the people that you've enabled to come together? Have there been, have you seen among those you support other people besides yourself who come together and shed that racism?
You know, we are in Rwanda. You see, in Africa, we have other problems than racism. We have problems with bad governance, and they use the difference between ethnic groups. But for us here in Rwanda, I didn't see these problems with racism. We had to follow these days with George Floyd, and how the world. You see, I read the Bible. I have seen that this mistake made by one policeman, and one person died, and all over the world, in Africa, in USA, they stood up to say, no, we are one human family. And this, I think it changed the mindset of our politicians, also in our humanitarian way, to pay attention, because what we suffer in this world, it's to think that our difference, normally our difference is our harmony. Imagine if everybody looked like we were all white or black. But this is, I always show with the flowers. We are harmony. Our difference, our differences are our richness. And then I understand. it's why I smile when my brother Mirza said that they will use COVID-19, but the very worst COVID in our heart, it's hatred. Because
Maggie, we're getting in a number of questions, and one is to you, so I'm going to keep with you right now. It says, what do you need to do as soon as possible to make sure children return to school in the middle of the global pandemic? What do you need?
What I need, for example, is computers. If I can have somebody to pay for us computers, we can change the lives for all those kids in the camp and all those students. It's very difficult. And also the families who lost their jobs. Now we try to to have a land because they like to cultivate, and we need support in buying some materials in order to product for themselves. In outside the camp, now I have a land, 10 hectares, and the women can go out of the camp and to go to cultivate with the host community, and we create another. And Monday we are going to open a restaurant in order to create hope for those young who lose in the town, lose their jobs. Now they will have their own restaurant, but we need equipment.
We need equipment.
Yes.
And so I'll go again. I imagine that we can just direct people to your website, Maison Shalom, so that they can make donations so that you can buy that equipment.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also computers.
And also computers. Great,
Yeah.
great. And Mirza, what are the top things that you would recommend people can do right now? So you've talked about the importance of advocacy. Great. You've talked about the importance of getting NGOs back into service so that they can serve displaced people. Is there anything else you would want to add to what people can do today? Because right now we have the ear of the world for another few minutes. What should you tell them? What should we tell them?
I think the most important, because the people in Sinjar, they are planning now to return back to their areas, and different IDPs in Iraq, they are trying to return back to their areas. We need an international fund to help to facilitate the returning back and rebuilding these areas. This is very important. We need a lot of development plans and programs for those areas in order to bring peace and to bring also the life to this destroyed area. This is very important. Unfortunately, what is missing in Iraq was this transitional justice process. So therefore, there is no any kind of transitional justice in Iraq to be a part of bringing life and bringing the rebuilding to those areas. What we need, maybe also on the personal level, to support the programs like ours, like from other NGOs, in order to facilitate even in individual. I say every time, saving one life is accounting. So if I can save one life, if I can help one family, one single family, is good to do that. And this is important nowadays to do for those people.
Thank you so much. You know, just to put some more context to some of what you're saying, we need development plans in place. I want to talk about development a little in relation to refugees, because the Millennium Development Goals did not actually include refugees, but today refugees are stuck for an average of 20 to 25 years in refugee situations. And so the UN affirmed the Global Compact on Refugees in December 2018. And that Global Compact has guidelines and pillars. One of them is to support host communities along with refugees so that you can create an enabling environment and show and enable more integration and opportunity, and make sure that there are not parallel systems, but one system. Another guideline of the Global Compact on Refugees is to enable refugee self-reliance. And that is a critical one today, because as we see with COVID-19, when people don't have opportunities for livelihoods, they get shut off from aid when a crisis like this hits. Other crises in the past have hit before, and people get shut off from aid. So when you have your own power and agency and can support yourself, then you're less susceptible to these crises. Then you can survive and get through it more effectively. And Maggie, that's exactly what you've been doing with Maison Shalom, is enabling people to get through this. So I guess a last question that has come up is that they say millions of refugees continue to be told to wash hands without soap or water and keep safe distances in still overcramped camps. What's the fastest way to get help to those who have already had their lives devastated by the effects of the pandemic? The fastest way. So we've answered that to some degree. Maggie, you've said what we need to do. Can I hear a final word from both of you about the fastest way to get help right now on the ground?
For me, it's the first word I said. We can't forget that we are one human family. In the family, when there is problems, they try to be together and to find solution. Then we need to live in dignity. There are not lower people who can die in indifference, and the other that they pay attention. For me, I need that you can support, for example, UN Agency for Refugees in Rwanda, because they ask money, but they didn't got because they said, oh, in Burundi, there is peace. Now we need that to hear our voice. Burundian refugees in Tanzania are dying. Then we must stand up and help them to live in dignity as a human being.
Mirza, last thoughts from you.
Well, there are some practical points. In the practical point, you have to offer more funds for those areas that are in need of support. This is the most important, and you should take those serious NGOs, international NGOs, local NGOs, in order to empower the refugee communities. We know the danger of those people. If we can imagine that 10 people are living in a tent and they are 2 meters far away from the neighbor, his neighbor, who is also with 7 people, and you have in 1 square kilometer 15,000 people in 1 square kilometer, and without any protection, how dangerous the situation is. And I think besides the supporting of on the political issue in order to establish peace and establish the rebuilding of the destroyed area in order to facilitate the returning back of refugees, you need urgently more funds for those areas, but not funds for those NGOs who are spending a lot of their money in administration. You need reliable NGOs who are doing the work on the ground. I think this is very important.
Great. So to summarize, education, livelihood support, help refugees return home, funds directly to refugee-led organizations, and advocacy for people in everywhere across the world. Advocacy to highlight that we are one human race, that we all should stand together. I want to say a few closing words about this conversation. Vartan Gregorian, one of the founders of the Aurora Prize, is a kind of global moral leader. And he said about you, Mirza and Maggie, and the laureates, and about the Aurora Prize, he said, we are part of a global community. We are part of humanity. We're setting an example that during terrible times, we are not alone. We are each other's keepers. I love that idea of humanity's keepers. You two are keepers of humanity, and all of us should be. When we think about COVID-19, refugees, persecution and war, racial violence and injustice, climate change, gender equality, the greatest challenges facing humanity, then we need to, in the face of all the devastation, find places for inspiration, hope, and action. When I try to think of words that describe the Aurora Prize and the laureates and what you mean, some that come to mind include altruism, courage, bravery, selflessness, devotion, nobility, compassion, empathy. Mirza and Maggie, your actions and your voices exemplify all these things. You inspire all of us in times of greatest need to do what's right, even if it's not easy, even if it's uncomfortable, and even if it's dangerous. If we follow your lead, we can make this place better for everybody. So thank you for being keepers of humanity, and thank you everybody for joining us today.
You too, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah.